So something I've realized during this quarantine is that a lot of people are so bored that there's been a higher demand for recommendations on things to watch. Since other than playing Animal Crossing, that's basically what most people do nowadays. So I thought it'd be cool to not only share a movie I think people should check out right now, but to also have some of my friends talk about their quarantine movie picks. So one movie I'll probably make a bigger video about is Unbreakable. This movie is about a comic book nerd played by Samuel L. Jackson who suspects that Bruce Willis's character has superpowers since he's the sole survivor of a deadly train crash. I don't get why people don't talk about this movie more nowadays. In a world overflowing with superhero movies, this one was so fresh way before it needed to be. It's so interesting to watch how the characteristics of a comic book are adapted into reality, and it's especially great during scenes where Mr. Glass and David Dunn discuss Glass's theory as to why superheroes can exist in our real world. Even the subtle nods to comics are great, like characters having consistently colored clothing and settings, and the cinematography trying to simulate the look of comic book panels. Yeah, now Unbreakable is part of a big connected universe trilogy thing, but I still think it's the best of the bunch and a really unique take on the superhero genre with a lot of heart. Definitely check this one out if you haven't seen it. Also, the score is godly.
Thanks again for letting me do this. I'm really excited to do my first movie review. Usually I'm doing bathroom reviews, but you know, I'm all for change, man. You know, let's do something different. So the movie I chose was The Last Black Man in San Francisco. And the reason I chose this, one being it's not a movie that commonly talked about, right? I think that's a unique factor in itself, and it's a movie worth seeing just for that, and also what it can give once you're done watching it. One of the first things I kind of noticed with this film was the cinematography, and it really reminded me of like a Wes Anderson and I think Emmanuel Lubezki from Series of Unfortunate Events. It's that type of style of like filming and storytelling, which I thought was wildly unique. When it comes to the sound production of this film, I mean, it was like on point. Like everything and how you're supposed to feel, the music was always accompanying that emotion really, really well. I think it kind of dug into parts that are very sensitive for many people, right? And Moonlight kind of did this as well, right? When it comes to, you know, what does it mean to be a black man, right? Being emotional, even as a man in general, what does it mean to be, you know, exposing your emotions, right? And in this film, they really dig into that in just the right amount of ways throughout the film that it complements the movie just perfectly. And obviously there's elements of gentrification in this film, a lot of aspects that go into the movie that make you think, right? And whether it be our world currently or whatever, you know, situations that people may be who are in a less fortunate, you know, bracket of wealth. Overall, it's a really good film. It keeps you hooked in right from the beginning. I definitely give it a solid 9 out of 10. Jonathan Majors was also a fantastic actor in this film. All right, take care.
My film selection for viewing during quarantine, or really any kind of teen life throws at you, is Tarantino's debut, Reservoir Dogs. This film is quintessential Quentin. Reservoir Dogs is short by Tarantino standards, but definitely not lacking. I think the film benefits from being his debut, as there were no high expectations set by the movie-going public. This was a period where Tarantino was clearly trying to assert himself as a creative force, and just about every frame of the movie conveys the style that he would soon after become famous for. It doesn't focus on internal development, like a character study, but instead looks at interactions and the way trust, or distrust, affects those interactions. And it does so in a really entertaining way. The dialogue, in my opinion, is one of the greatest strengths of the film, and that doesn't take away from the superb acting, story, and unique, almost static location in which it all takes place. Do yourself a favor and watch it, whether that be for the first, second, third, or nth time. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Master Reviews. Happy viewing!
My recommendation is for the limited series recently brought to Netflix called Waco. Waco follows the memoirs of both a hostage negotiator and a survivor of the 51-day standoff between the Branch Davidians and FBI in Waco, Texas. The series was received pretty divisively for its sympathetic take on the events that occurred during the seizure at Waco, but honestly I felt like this unique perspective is part of what made the show just so binge-worthy. It stayed really informative while still developing those character connections that I really look for in a show. The series was definitely tough to see at different points, but I think it remains an incredible watch, and my heart was racing for the entirety of the last episode.
What's up, guys? It's Arjun here. I'm here to talk about The Dark Knight, one of my favorite movies of all time. And one of the main things that's specific about this movie of the trilogy, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises, is kind of the scale at which Batman, the superhero, and the Joker, the villain, fight. And you see it as a stark contrast to a lot of today's Avengers movies, for example, where it seems to be the superhero is fighting to save the world. But here, everything's kind of scaled down. It's the Joker trying to break Gotham as a city while Batman is starkly defending it. And with it being scaled down to kind of problems of a city, it makes all the scenes between the Joker and the Batman throughout this movie extremely realistic and extremely tense to watch. One of the themes that the Joker constantly challenges is pushing people's ethical boundaries through these dilemmas. Besides that, the technology in this movie also makes it incredibly realistic. The sonar system Batman uses to shut down the building Lau is in to capture him, real military technology. His suit, Kevlar-based stuff, also real military technology. And overall, the soundtrack of the whole thing, shout out Hans Zimmer, is absolutely amazing. And this is just one of my favorite superhero movies of all time.